On a rain-slick evening in New York City, the chandeliers inside the Grand Meridian Hotel glittered like constellations trapped in glass. Cameras flashed. A string quartet played near the marble staircase. The annual Children's Health Gala, benefiting St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, was in full swing. And at the center of it all stood Victor Halston. Everyone knew the name. Founder and CEO of Halston Technologies. Net worth, $12 billion. A man whose handshake could move markets. He was tall, silver-haired, impeccably dressed. The kind of man who didn't wait in lines and didn't hear the word no. Tonight, he was here to make a statement. The auctioneer tapped the microphone. Ladies and gentlemen, our final item, a private lunch with Olympic legend Simone Biles and a VIP tour of her training facility. All proceeds go to children battling cancer. Bidding erupted. 50,000. 75. 100,000. Victor raised a single finger. $1 million, he said calmly. The room went silent, then exploded in applause. Cameras swiveled toward him. $1 million was pocket change for Victor Halston, but it was a headline for everyone else. The auctioneer beamed. Sold. To Mr. Halston. Victor offered a polite nod, savoring the moment. He had built his empire from code and nerve, from a tiny apartment in Queens to the glass towers of Midtown. Moments like this reminded the world who he was. A young event coordinator hurried over with a sleek wireless payment terminal. Mr. Halston, whenever you're ready. Victor slid out his black titanium card. Limited edition. Invitation only. It had never failed him. He inserted it. The machine beeped. Processing. Then a soft, humiliating sound. Declined. The coordinator blinked. I'm so sorry. Perhaps there's a network issue? A faint ripple moved through the crowd. Victor felt heat rise up his neck. That's impossible, he said evenly. Try again. She did. Declined. The string quartet faltered mid-note. Whispers ignited like dry brush. Victor forced a smile. Run it again. Declined. His phone buzzed. A flood of notifications. Financial news alerts. Market apps. His company's stock, Halston Technologies, was in freefall. An emergency article from the Wall Street Journal flashed across his screen, federal investigation announced into accounting practices. His CFO's name. The word fraud. Victor's stomach dropped. Within minutes, guests were checking their phones. Reporters were stepping outside to take calls. The applause that had filled the ballroom moments earlier curdled into murmurs. The coordinator lowered her voice. Sir, would you like to try another card? Victor had built an empire on control. Tonight, control was evaporating. Before he could answer, a small voice piped up. I'll pay. Heads turned. Near the edge of the ballroom, by a pillar wrapped in white roses, stood a little girl in a faded blue dress. She couldn't have been more than 8. Her hair was pulled into uneven pigtails. In her hands, she clutched a glass jar filled with coins, quarters, nickels, pennies. The room went still. An older woman beside her, probably her grandmother, whispered urgently, Maya, no. But the girl stepped forward. My name is Maya, she said, her voice trembling but clear. I was saving this for my mom's medicine. But, you said it's for sick kids, right? The auctioneer swallowed. Yes, sweetheart. It is. Maya walked up to the stage. The jar shook in her small hands. Then you can use mine. Victor stared at her, the world narrowing to the sound of coins clinking against glass. How much is that? Someone in the crowd asked softly. The grandmother's eyes were wet. It's everything she saved for 2 years. Lemonade stands. Returning bottles. Birthday money. The coordinator crouched to Maya's level. Honey, this is very generous, but it won't be $1 million. Maya nodded. I know. But it's all I have. A silence heavier than gold filled the ballroom. Victor felt something unfamiliar twist in his chest. He had grown up poor. People didn't know that part. They only saw the penthouse and the private jet. But there had been nights in Queens when his mother pretended she wasn't hungry so he could eat. He had promised himself he would never feel small again. And yet here he was, smaller than an 8-year-old girl with a jar of coins. He stepped forward slowly. What's your mother's name? He asked. Elena, Maya said. She works 2 jobs. She's sick, but she doesn't like hospitals. They're expensive. Victor glanced at his phone again. His accounts were frozen pending investigation. Billions on paper, inaccessible in practice. The irony burned. He turned to the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, his voice steadier now, tonight, my card was declined. A nervous chuckle rippled. But this young lady's heart was approved. A few guests clapped hesitantly. Victor knelt in front of Maya. Cameras flashed wildly. You were saving this for your mom? She nodded. He took a breath. Keep your money. All of it. The coordinator looked confused. But sir. Victor stood and addressed the room. I don't know what tomorrow brings for my company. I don't know what the headlines will say. But I do know this, $1 million pledge means nothing if I can't honor it with integrity. He paused. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to bid on lunch with a celebrity. Instead, I'm pledging something I still control, my time, my knowledge, and every unencumbered asset I personally own. Gasps. I will liquidate my art collection. My vintage cars. My second home in the Hamptons. Every personal luxury that isn't essential. And I will match every dollar donated tonight up to $1 million. The ballroom erupted. Phones rose. Live streams began. The auctioneer's voice cracked. Ladies and gentlemen, you heard the man. Donations started pouring in. $50,000 from a hedge fund manager. $20,000 from a fashion mogul. $10,000 from an anonymous couple in the back. Within 30 minutes, the total crossed $600,000. Maya clutched her jar, wide-eyed. Victor turned back to her. And as for your mom? He looked at the event director. Does this hospital provide consultations for families without insurance? The director nodded slowly. Yes. Through partner programs. Good, Victor said. Set up an appointment for Elena. Tomorrow. The grandmother covered her mouth, sobbing. Reporters surged forward. Mr. Halston. What about the investigation? Victor faced them squarely. If mistakes were made, they'll be corrected. If crimes were committed, they'll be answered for. But tonight isn't about me. It's about children who deserve a chance. The next morning, headlines shifted. Billionaire's card declined at Gala, then pledges personal fortune. Clips of Maya offering her jar went viral. Millions of views. Hashtags trended. Donations flooded into St. Jude Children's Research Hospital from across the country. Within a week, the Gala's total surpassed $2 million. Meanwhile, the investigation into Halston Technologies revealed that Victor hadn't orchestrated the fraud. A rogue executive had manipulated numbers to inflate quarterly earnings. Victor had signed off on reports he trusted. His board urged him to step down temporarily. He did. For the first time in decades, Victor Halston was not in charge of a corporation. Instead, he found himself sitting in a modest hospital room beside Elena and Maya. Elena looked tired but grateful. You didn't have to do this, she whispered. Yes, Victor said quietly. I did. He watched Maya coloring in a book on the windowsill. Your daughter reminded me who I used to be. Elena smiled faintly. She reminds me every day who I want to be. Months passed. Victor sold the cars, the art, the Hamptons house. True to his word, he matched the donations. He also did something else. He created the Maya Fund, a scholarship and medical assistance program for children of single parents battling chronic illness. Seeded not by corporate accounts, but by his personal assets. At the fund's launch event, this time in a simple community center, not a marble ballroom, Maya stood beside him at the podium. "You don't have to be rich to help," she said into the microphone. "You just have to care." The room stood in applause. Victor looked at her, humbled. His company eventually stabilized. The stock recovered slowly. He returned as CEO under stricter oversight, leaner and less arrogant. But he was different. He no longer measured success in billions. He measured it in hospital bills paid, in children who got to ring the remission bell, in single parents who could breathe a little easier. 1 year after the gala, Victor received a letter. It was from Maya. "Dear Mr. Halston, Mom is getting better. I'm still saving my coins, but now it's for college. I want to be a doctor. Or maybe a boss like you. But a nice one." He laughed aloud, tears blurring the ink. The night his card was declined had felt like the end of everything. In truth, it had been the beginning. Because when his wealth failed him, a poor little girl's courage did the unthinkable. She reminded a billionaire and a watching world that the most powerful currency isn't credit.